In this video that brings information about the moon, we will present basic facts about the human activities done on the moon. Why it is called a moon?
The word moon can be traced to the word mona, an Old English word from medieval times. Mona shares its origins with the Latin words metri, which means to measure, and mensis, which means month. People in ancient times used the moon to measure the passing of the months. Astronomers across Europe discovered 5 moons around Saturn during the 1600s. These objects became known as moons because they were close to their planets, just as our own moon is close to the Earth. It's fair to say that other moons are named after our own moon.
How many times have people landed on the moon?
After landing Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon on the 20th of July on 1969, Apollo 11, the USA landed 5 more missions up to 1972. 12 people in total have walked on the surface of the moon. Since then, no one has been back to the moon. During these missions, the astronauts collected samples, conducted science experiments, explored the landscape in a buggy, and even played golf. NASA plans to place humans on the lunar surface again with the launch of Artemis 3 in 2025.
Who was the first person on the moon?
Astronauts Neil Armstrong, Mike Collins, and Buzz Aldrin flew on the Apollo 11 mission. On the 20th of July 1969, American astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first person to walk on the moon. He stepped out of the Apollo 11 lunar module and onto the moon's surface, in an area called the Sea of Tranquility. As he put his left foot onto the moon, Armstrong declared, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Armstrong and Aldrin landed on the moon. They landed on the moon in the lunar module. It was called the Eagle. Collins stayed in orbit around the moon. He did experiments and took pictures. Armstrong and the lunar module pilot, Edwin Buzz Aldrin, collected data and soil samples before planting the US flag. They also unveiled a plaque bearing President Nixon's signature and an inscription reading, "On July 24, 1969, all 3 astronauts came back to Earth safely."
Can we see the flag on the moon with the telescope?
This is a question that astronomers get asked a lot. The flag is still on the moon, but we can't see it using a telescope. Unfortunately, the equipment left behind by the Apollo missions is tiny in comparison to the size of the moon. Ground-based telescopes, especially those owned by amateur observers, are not capable of resolving objects this small at such extreme distances. Even a high-powered telescope will only be able to show craters, which are around 1 kilometer, about the size of a large neighborhood.
How much would I weigh on the moon?
On the moon, a person would weigh 6 times less than they do on Earth. This is because the moon has 1/6 the gravity of Earth. Why is your weight on the moon so much less than your weight on the Earth? It's because of the lower gravity on the moon. Objects on the surface of the moon experience only 16.5% of the gravity they would experience on Earth. The low gravity on the moon made it easier for the astronauts to move around and even jump. Your weight on the moon is 16.5% what you would experience on Earth. In other words, if you weighed 100 kilograms on Earth, you would weigh a mere 16.5 kilograms on the moon. Conversely, a person is 83.5% heavier on Earth than on the moon.
Is there water on the moon?
In 2020, NASA announced the discovery of water on the sunlit surface of the moon. And NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine said that, "We don't know yet if we can use it as a resource." Also, he added that learning more about the water is crucial to US plans to explore the moon. Data from the Strategic Observatory for Infrared Astronomy revealed that in Clavius crater, Water exists in concentrations roughly equivalent to a 12-ounce bottle of water within a cubic meter of soil across the lunar surface. The discovery showed that water could be distributed across the lunar surface, even on sunlit portions, and not confined to cold, dark areas.
How long is a day on the moon?
Thanks to the development of modern astronomy and space exploration, our understanding of the moon has grown immensely. For instance, we know that the moon may have played an important role in the development of life here on Earth. We've also learned that the moon is tidally locked with Earth, which means that one side is constantly facing towards it. But what constitutes a single day on the lunar surface? A day on the moon lasts as long as 29.5 Earth days or 655.72 hours long.
What is a lunar eclipse?
Lunar eclipses occur when Earth is positioned precisely between the moon and sun. Earth's shadow falls upon the surface of the moon, dimming it and sometimes turning the lunar surface a striking red over the course of a few hours. Each lunar eclipse is visible from half of Earth. A lunar eclipse only happens during a full moon and can last as long as 6 hours, according to the European Space Agency. There are 3 types of lunar eclipses depending on how the Sun, Earth, and Moon are aligned at the time of the eclipse. Total lunar eclipse, partial lunar eclipse, penumbral lunar eclipse.
Does the moon have seasons?
The moon doesn't experience noticeable seasons. The moon's axis is tilted by only about 1.5 degrees, so the moon doesn't experience noticeable seasons. This means that some areas are always lit by sunlight, and other places are perpetually draped in shadow. But the Earth's axis of rotation is tilted about 23.5 degrees in relation to the ecliptic plane, an imaginary disk through Earth's orbit around the Sun. This means the northern and southern hemispheres point somewhat toward or away from the Sun depending on the time of year, varying the amount of solar radiation they receive and causing the seasons.
What causes a ring around the moon?
Rings around the moon are caused when moonlight passes through thin clouds of ice crystals high in Earth's atmosphere. The ring, or a lunar halo, is caused by the refraction and reflection of light from ice crystals that are suspended in thin, wispy, cirrus or cirrostratus clouds that are at high altitudes. The shape of the ice crystals causes the moonlight to be focused into a ring. This is similar to the way water droplets in the lower atmosphere can bend sunlight to create a rainbow.